now that we have all of the warp put on the loom, we've gotten to the last notch. Well, actually, I had one notch left over because I accidentally made one too many. That's okay though. I have my string on the back, and I'm going to cut this. I'm going to make it nice and long. And just like the first one, I'm just going to lay it down and take a piece of tape and just tape it down to the back. Okay. So to get started, it would be fun to just start weaving right away, but we have to do a couple of things first. We need a spacer, and we're going to start weaving on one end and go to the other. And so on the side that we're going to start with, we want to put a spacer. So I just cut out a piece of cardboard. This actually came off like a cereal box. And I'm going to start by going over, under, over, under. And I'm just going to feed this over, under, all of the strings. It's really important that we don't miss any. So I'm going all the way across, just sliding this through every other one, and I can just pull the strings up to go underneath them, over, under, all the way across. Okay, till I get to the other side. So I'm going to double check right now that I didn't miss any. Because if I have two over or two under, that can cause problems. Okay, so I have my spacer in here, and I'm just going to gently slide it down to the bottom. It doesn't need to go all the way because I don't want to force the strings off the bottom, but I want to get it down close to the bottom. All right, once I have that in place, then I can start actually weaving. The first strands though that we do, we want to use a thinner string. A yarn will work fine, but it can't be anything too thick. We're going to do thicker things up here, and we're going to get more fancy with our weaving later. But to start with, we're just simply going to use something thin. Because we have this piece in here, we're going to just use this to make our very first strand. We can make the very first one a little bit easier. Well, actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go opposite. That will be stronger. So I'm going to go opposite of what I did with the cardboard. So the cardboard starts on this side by going over and then under. So I'm going to take the first warp string, I'm going to go under it and then over. So I'm doing the under over again, but this time I'm just doing it opposite of what I did with the cardboard. That will help us get a nice strong start. The yarn that I'm using is a cotton yarn. It's actually attached to the skein right now. I'm just going to leave it attached. Okay, so I've gotten all the way across. Now, since this slides pretty easily, I'm going to go ahead and gently pull it through. And for this first bit, for the first couple of rows that I'm going to do, I'm going to need enough to do, I would say at least 6 rows across. So I have to pull through quite a bit. So right now I only have like enough for 1.5 more. So I'm just going to gently keep pulling this through. And I don't want to pull it through down here. I want to pull it through up further, so it's just easier. All right, my yarn's starting to tangle over here, so I have to untangle it. Okay, let me see how much I have. If I were to go back and forth, 1, 2, and I want to make sure I leave extra. Don't pull it tight, leave it loose. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's about 6. You know what? I'm going to do a little bit more. Just for good measure. It's always better to have more than not enough. But if I do run out, it's not that big of a deal. It's pretty easy to add more string. So I'm going to cut that off. And when I get started, it's really important to leave a nice tail off this starting end. So I'm going to pull my string, or gently push my string down. Okay. To the bottom, right up next to this cardboard piece. And since this is the very start, I might just take a little piece of tape for this piece and just tape it down. Probably not totally necessary, but why not? Okay. Since we're not dealing with a ton of string right here, I could just kind of wad it up and stick it through all of the pieces. That does get a little bit cumbersome though. So since this string isn't too long, if we're careful and I keep this from getting tangled and knotted, I can just simply pull it through gently. Okay. Now I'm going to cut another piece off of my cardboard here. It's about 1 inch wide. And this is going to be a helper, okay? So I'm going to use this half the time. So I'm going to, I want these to be opposite every time. So I'm going to use this piece and I'm going to go opposite of what I did with my first string. So it'll actually be the same as my first piece of cardboard. I'm going to go under, over, doing the same thing as my cardboard for the first time. This piece of cardboard will be under all the same strings and over all the same strings as the other cardboard. Okay, so now with this trick, I can simply pull this up here farther and gently flip this, okay? So now this is going to be opposite. As long as it's opposite, it'll work really well. I can take my yarn and bring it through this space that the cardboard has made. Let me just double check that that's correct. Yes, and that will be opposite of my last string, so that is correct. I'm going to carefully pull it through. So every time I go from this end in this direction, I can use my cardboard to make it fast and easy and help me out. Okay, so now I've got this and it's opposite of what I did last time. Okay, and I'm going to take it up diagonally, okay, and then I'm going to set this down and I can use this piece to even help me move that down, or I can use my fingers. Sometimes people will use a comb. The important thing is that I'm not pulling it. I'm just moving it down, okay? On this side, I still have a little bit of a loop hanging off. I'm going to gently tighten that up just a tiny bit. We want this to be a little loose here on the end. One big problem is people will pull it tight and then the loom will start to get small in the middle, and we don't want that. Okay, so that time it was easy. I just lifted up. Well, I can't do that going the other way because it'll be the same. We want to go opposite every time. So this time, when I go back, I have to actually go up and down, over, under. Okay. I'm going to take my yarn, I'm going to go under and over and under, all the way across. Being careful to lift up every other string. That's the important thing. Making sure I'm lifting every other string, every other warp string. So I'm doing the opposite of what I did last time. Okay, I pulled now. I don't want to pull any more. This is already to the edge. So it can be diagonal, it can be right against the edge, but now I'm not going to pull it tight. I'm going to move it down with my fingers. I can use this to help me too. All right. So now once again, I'm back to the point where I'm going this direction, and that's the easy direction for me. So I just get to lift this up and shoot that yarn through the hole, through the center. Super easy that time. And I'm going to keep going until I run out of this. I will probably get to do about 8 rows, and I just want to check, making sure every couple of rows that it's still doing the over under thing, because if I screw up, I want to actually go back and fix that before I get too much further. And I can use that to push it down.